enable people to gain clarity and accomplish their goals faster, more easily. And that really is, in a nutshell, what mind models do. And mind models are basically, we teach people not what to think, but how to think differently, how to actually use your brain more effectively. And these are tested. These are not, my best guesses. Back in the day, and I'm going to just give you a little bit of background here. Back in the day, didn't wind up at the ripe old age of 21. I became a vice president of a college, a private college. My mother, myself, and Vicki Jolin started a private college here in Canada, and it was called Life Skills Colleges, and it was a licensed educational institution under the province of Alberta up here in Canada. And we had to jump through all the frickin' hoops that they throw up, and there was a lot of them. We did it, and the issue was we were working with people with primarily psychiatric problems, and they were being referred to us by government agencies. So screwing up would have been bad. Let's just call it that. We didn't. And we got results that nobody else was getting, not even the psychiatrists were getting. And we got them with some of the worst people. We got their blacklisted individuals that didn't fit into normal psychiatric problems. They didn't fit into talk therapy. They didn't fit into drug therapy. They were kicked out of hospitals. If they slashed up, cut their wrists, they were stitched up and held for 24 hours, then released back to the city, like to just making sure that they were healed up enough so that they could kick them out of the hospital and out of the system. And just nobody wanted to help these people. Those are the kind of people that were in our small groups to start with. They didn't fit anyplace else. And the government of Canada actually spent $42 million and 5 years doing a research project and defined 362 core coping, problem solving, and success skills that people have, which was fundamentally the foundational research that got me going in the direction that I want. We started the college. It wasn't designed for psychiatric patients. It was designed for people, criminal population, actually, to be blunt about it. And it wasn't, my mom had spent, I think she'd already done 25 years volunteer work and was a social worker at the time, and recognized that this should probably work for mental health individuals. And so, and people with chronic sociological problems, like people who their families were multi-generational on welfare and whatnot. So we got them all. We got the worst of the worst to start off with. And people off the street, people psychiatric issues, criminal issues, we got a lot of that too, by the way, in the early days. And we got people sentenced to us by the courts. And it's just because people didn't want to deal with anybody else. So they sent them to Life Skills. They'll fix them. And we did. We had a 76.2% success rate on average over a 10-year longitudinal study where we followed each person for 3 years. I don't know of another program that did that extensive follow-up work and training. Most of them, for their funds to get redone, were like 3 weeks to 3 months. Anyway, that's the background piece. Yeah, it was incredible. So that's where I cut my teeth. And you know what? It is fundamentally a critical piece of where all of these mind models started coming from. Now, I can honestly say 100% of these mind models are broadly based on those 362, but none of them are exactly or even close to exactly any of those 362. In fact, question concepts, which is a main mind model, I don't teach that here. Sorry, you're going to have to buy another program or buy something to get access to that. But that one in and of itself, and belief systems, those two are the core of all the other mind models. And that's what I do. I wind up listening to people's language patterns, and I'm able to profile people based on that. And I'm feeling actually pretty good tonight. So we're going to try and wrap up at a reasonable hour. So I can't talk too long here about this stuff. And we're going to try and do a profiling session just to say. Anyway, that's what we're going to try and do, squeeze in a profiling session tonight. But profiling is based on being able to listen to how people think on the fly, how people process information. And how do you do that? Question concepts. Every utterance out of a person's mouth is filtered through one of 6 core question concepts. It's simply a who, what, when, where, why, or how. But that's not the question concept. That's the name of it. And that was the differentiator. You got to know the background pieces of it. And it took me 6.5 years of research to figure that stuff out. So anyway, just saying, that's where it all comes down to. And we tested the crap out of it at Life Skills College because we needed to. We had to have things that work. Every single mind model that we created to build on that 362, we created those because there were small and sometimes fairly significant gaps in the fundamental research that they were doing at the time. We took the principles of it, and one of the principles was they had to name and label stuff. So the 3 guiding principles of mind models are they have to be identifiable, named and labeled, repeatable. In other words, you have to be able to do them over and over and over again in a similar or different situation, but do that mind model over again and get similar results, okay? Not broadly different results, similar results, and they have to be duplicatable. In other words, you have to be able to transfer these to other people, which we're doing here. Trevor and I are here to make things duplicatable so that other people get the chance to use mind models. So those 3 things are absolutely crucial. By the way, that's not what mindset does. Mindset is all about a belief system and having you believe whatever you want to believe. But if you believe in yourself, you just go, I'm great, I'm great, I'm good, I'm good. Raw me, yay, yes, I can go do it. But it's like putting a person in an airplane who's never been trained to fly and say, I believe in you, you can go fly the thing. Yes, go, great, go, you can do it. Just, move that stick around, figure out how it works, push those pedals. You can make this thing fly. I believe in you. Well, I believe that person has got a far greater chance of crashing and burning than becoming a fighter ace or even landing the plane safely. So
there's no skill sets in there.
Yeah, there's no skill sets in there, just the belief system. And beliefs are fine because we need our beliefs to guide some of our moral, we have to believe of what's right, what's wrong. Those are moral things. But I prefer going after what's effective or what's ineffective, which is one of our mind models. How come? Because mind models also have this characteristics. They're all externally verifiable. You can take a look at what's going on with a mind model. You can test it. You can try it out. You can identify it, repeat it, and duplicate it. And you get verifiability with them. So it either works in that situation or doesn't work in that situation. And what at the end of the day, you get to go out there and figure out how this thing actually works and when does it work, because there are real limitations to it. And I'm not going to cheerlead you or blow smoke where it don't belong. I'm going to actually tell you, hey, if you go out there and try out a mind model and it doesn't work, it was probably an inappropriate place to use that mind model. And just because you think it works or believe that it should work doesn't mean that it will or won't. It's not a belief system. This is about figuring out what actually works. And it's like testing. And you test it, it gets a result. You use it again and again, and you get similar results every time. That's how you build successes. And that's how successful people build successes. And I've been fortunate enough to work with some extraordinarily successful people, billionaires in my lifetime, and a lot of people all over the world, actually, who have had huge successes and developed some people that are actually having pretty huge successes. Darren, a very dear friend of mine, Darren Olstad, has a company down in Costa Rica. But he's down in Argentina again. And this guy's in his early 30s still. And I met him when he was 21. And so I've known him for over a decade. And he just showed me or sent me a picture of his polo club team members with a trophy because they just won a polo match, and it's a fairly significant one. And anyway, he's the guy in the middle, the tallest one there, and that's him. Whoops, there. I'll just do it this way. Okay, so nice. That's him in his whole polo outfit and garb, holding the swag bag that they got for winning, and it was. They won 7-6 in overtime. So it was a close one. And he's big time into polo. And that's down in Argentina, where he flies down and spends, 3-4 months playing with some of the best polo players in the world because he can afford to do that now. He's living the lifestyle of the rich and famous. I have other clients doing similar things in different directions. And most of you I know I met through NES, and Tim Irway and Matt and Fernie are all our clients as well, and helped Tim and Matt turn it around even before Fernie was around years ago, and back again to teach these skills. Anyway, that's just a little taste about what mind models are and what mindset is and what mindset doesn't do. And at the end of the day, mindset has been around for 100 years, and it still hasn't lived up to all the expectations and all the hype that people have said that what you should be able to do with mindset, and you can't. So, so I'm out here to promote mind models because mind models get real world results. And that's all that I can say. And some of you have purchased the program, Rewiring Your Mind for Wealth. And I know it's a bit of a plug here, but I'm going to plug it anyway, because Rewiring Your Mind for Wealth and Rebecca and Tim Graff have taken the program. John has taken the program. There's numerous people. April has bought and taken the program. Hey, April, glad you could make it this time. A lot of people have, and it's made a significant change in their lives. So well done, guys. Well done. Super glad to have you back on the call. And Dwayne just said, I'll get mine next week. Awesome. Good. By the way, we are doing a call out for those people that have raised their hand and said, I'd like to come to the Mind Model Coach training in March. We've changed the date slightly. Trevor, do you have any of that stuff? And do you want to talk at people? Because I'm done.
Sure. So we did change the dates that we gave you guys some tentative dates last week. The second date we gave you, I think, was March 28th to the 31st. That's now the first date. And then the second date that we've got now is May 2nd to 5th, I believe. And what we're wanting to do, Blair was mentioning question concepts and belief systems. And those are two of the things that you'll be learning in the Mind Model Coach Training Program.
Could you repeat those dates again? Jamie just asked.
Sure. So March 28th to the 31st and May 2nd to 5th. And I'll double check those, but Blair just threw it over to me. So
sorry.
I didn't have a chance to check it, but I'm pretty sure those are correct. And what we're wanting to do, we might have a little bit of time tomorrow afternoon and maybe later on this week. Several of you have raised your hand or are interested in it. We'd like to have some conversations with some of you and just start that process before we, I guess, publicly put up an application for people. So if you guys are one of the ones that have been interested, or if you're interested now, let us know, and we can set something up this week where we can have a chat with you. Blair and I will chat with you guys and figure out what you were expecting to get from the program. We'll be able to tell you more about what you can get from the program, what you'll be able to do, what you won't be able to do, that kind of stuff. So we want to start having some conversations with people this week. We're not going to be able to get to everybody this week, and we are going to be gone next week, but we'll pick up with it after that. John was saying locations. Yeah, we're still planning on doing it in San Diego. So yeah. So I've got you, John. I've got you, Tim. If any of you guys that are interested, I've got phone numbers for many of you, but if you could email me your contact info, I do have a lot of you already.
Email and preferably cell phones, so we can also get a hold of you via text. Please, please, please.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I've got emails for pretty much everybody that's on here that's let me know. I've got your emails, obviously, because you've signed up for the webinar, so we got it that way. But you can just send it to support@rewiringthemind, or you can send it to me.
That's support@rewiringthemind.com.
I know I've got at least one phone number for you guys and multiple emails. So we're just going to reach out to a few people to try to
Thank you, Dwayne.
A few people this week if we can. I think I had yours as well, Dwayne, but I'm not sure if it was your home phone or your cell phone. I just took it from your profile.
Yeah.
But, so I think that was what I wanted to cover on that, but we are getting the ball rolling with that. We did change the dates a little bit. There are some requirements and qualifications that we need to go through with people. We've already let everybody know that you do need to have purchased and have gone through the How to Rewire Your Mind for Wealth program, and at least watch the videos. And we will be testing you a little bit to make sure that you've actually gone through the program, because we do want people to be prepared when they come to this, so that we're not spending so much time on the basics.
Yeah, we've got too many. Mind model coach training is going to be, there are 63 mind models between the videos and the manuals. All 63 are in the manuals. There are 30 mind models that you can see easily. And then you've got the bridging mind models that are also in the manual that help tie things together more effectively. It really does help whether or not you come to this or not. It really does help with sorting out your mind for your business, but relationships. I mean, I think it's okay for me to say, because they gave me permission to put up their testimonial, but Rebecca and Tim Graff shared with me how it's actually impacted their relationship. And on this call, John and his wife also shared, like on earlier webinars, the same thing, how it's shifted the stress level of how John is. So, I mean, it does so many things. And yes, we will be asking for deposits. And the deposit that we're going to be looking for is $1,000 down. It's $7,500 still for the cost of this first course. After that, the price doubles. So we're giving people 50% off right up front here. And we're keeping the group smaller. So we might take up to 25, maybe 30 people at the tops, but actually, but it may only be 10 people. Whatever we actually get, but we have to get a minimum of 10 people in to actually make it viable to go through and get it done. But if there's enough demand, we'll take 25 people for sure. And if they're great people, we might take a few more. But the target is 20. And we're going to be balancing out the group with 20. What I mean by balancing out the group, I'm going to be looking at individuals and how they play and how they interact with other people. I used to do this in coach training all the time, and it's getting the right mix of people in a group and creating a good group dynamic makes all the difference in the world to the experience that people have. And we want you guys to have the best experience of your lives, literally, and experience the full potential of what mind model coach training can do. I'm very excited today. I had 2 great days. I got another evaluation from I'm doing in one of my other groups. I'm training them on what's called IBC, Igniting the Buying Conversation. Is my version of a sales skills and how to use mind models in sales. And IBC is we're hitting it out of the park with that. We're getting phenomenal successes and kicking up. It's so exciting. I will not be training that.
I was like,
it's not part. Sorry, I apologize. I'm leading you guys on. I gotta shut up. I'm
scratch everything Blair just said. It's not available.
Okay, it's not available. You can't do anything with it.
Dangling stuff.
I am sorry. I'm not meaning to. I just had a really good day. I was just going to tell. I'm in the process of just telling you, Trevor. You know, I got another. Like I had a group of people in there, and I said, so I do always, as I do here frequently, like, what's your rating on a scale of 1 to 10? And one person said 11. The other person said 10 plus. Well, 100. You know, like, it's like, holy crap. Like, it's so relevant. That training was so relevant because we break it down and catch people really doing the work right in the middle of it. And that's what we're going to be doing at Mind Model Coach Training. So that we're going to be catching you guys in the middle of using mind models and then causing other people, everybody else has to learn how to hear them, know them, act on them, and know what to do differently. What do you do next? What's your next step? And you're going to start seeing that in Mind Model Coach Training. And it is going to be fun. Too late. We already have bit from that carrot. Sorry. Anyway, hey, Mind Model Coach Training is extremely exciting. Once you do that, we do have.
Let's not go into that. We got to get going with the webinar, Blair.
Thank you. I'm
gonna start swearing and.
I'm gonna need a legectomy. It's not just a footectomy; it's a legectomy.
All right.
Sorry.
We need some volunteers so we can get a panel.
Yeah, and, good. You take charge.
You're really going to have to move fast, Blair, if you want to keep it short and do profiling. So.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. I burnt too much time.
Okay, we got.
Oh, there we are. We have John.
I'll just go with that.
Boom, and it's done. It was like bang, people were up and on.
Perfect.
Hey, Jamie. Hey, Rebecca. Yay, and John. Awesome. Awesome. Your lovely wife, I don't see her behind you.
I know.
Oh, sorry. You're a little too big there.
I'm here.
Cool. There you go. Okay. There you are. Awesome, guys. Okay, so we have an exciting program here tonight, and it's very interesting. Risk Being Wrong, Not Being Broke is the formal title of it. But in reality, it's going to be way more practical. Where to start? Comfort zones. So, tell me, each of the three of you, Jamie, John, Rebecca, tell me about what comfort zone, when I just say the word comfort zone, what does that mean to you?
That means you're in a place where you're not stretching.
Okay, you're not stretching. You're
right.
Playing it safe.
Right.
Okay, John.
Yeah, since you introduced the concept of risk, so and in that terminology, it would be a place where I didn't feel at risk in any way.
Okay, cool. And what kind of at risk are you talking about?
Well, there's financial risk, there's social risk.
Okay.
I've done a lot of investing, so in fact, I'm underwater on a stock position right now, thanks to the market recently. But there's lots of different kinds of risks. But when you talk about comfort zone, for me, it's mostly more social.
Okay, cool. Rebecca.
I can identify with that too, about the comfort zone being social, because a lot of times we don't step out of what we're comfortable doing, whether that be a habit or routine, something in business, because of the feelings that we get from that. So for comfort zone for me is somewhere where we're basically happy existing. We're happy in our habits, we're happy in our business. We don't feel the need to step out and do anything that might be scary or unsafe in our mind, because we're just good where we're at. We're in our comfort zone. We're comfortable there.
Right. Okay. And So let's go back and talk a little bit about safety versus comfort real quick. It's one of our earliest mind models that we did here. And what's the difference between safety and comfort? I'm going to pick on you, Rebecca.
Safety is external stuff,
Yep.
so like safe in a building, and comfort is an internal feeling.
Yes.
Comfortable.
Yep. And so safety is external and is caused usually, but like if you were in an earthquake and your house started shaking, that would mean that where you are is feeling unsafe, right? So you've got a safety concern. Somebody breaks in and threatens you. That's a safety concern. So these are all safety. Now, there also can be uncomfortable, but for the majority of them, the dominant thing is definitely safety, correct?
Right. You mostly physical safety, right?
Yeah, mostly physical safety. And that's one of the things that we recognize is that we have our physicality is being threatened somehow by something physical. Whereas comfort, you know, I've got a comfortable chair here. It's physical, but I'm comfortable on it. Okay. And so do I want to change? And the funny thing here is I don't think of this chair as safe or unsafe. I think it is comfortable or uncomfortable. Okay. And that comfort is an emotional reaction to that environment that I'm in, or that sensation that I'm feeling from the environment that I'm in. But does it mean that I'm safe or not safe? Well, maybe, or yes and no. I'm going to give you an example. Car manufacturers have spent a lot of money making cars feel comfortable when you get in. How come? Because driving a car is one of the riskiest things that you can do in your life. Okay. So that's the biggest risk you take every single day. Statistically, that's just a fact.
Unless you're into some really risky stuff.
Yeah. Like if you're into drugs or whatever and going into really antisocial type stuff or behavior or violence or whatever, then yes, that's not necessarily the riskiest. But that's the average person's riskiest thing that they do daily. And it is risky. Now, so you wind up doing that, but the manufacturers make that car feel comfortable, so you don't think about the risk that you're in. Now, plane seats generally are getting a little bit more comfortable over time, but I do a lot of flying, but they're still not that comfortable. They're definitely not as comfortable as car seats. Okay, and yet they're far safer because they've designed them so that you can, if certain kinds of crashes, you can survive that crash. Okay, that plane is built for more safety than the average car is by far. And the odds of you getting into a serious accident are far, 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 far less than driving in a car on average. So you've got more probability of getting into a car accident going to the airport than having an accident once you're in the air. So just stats, just the facts. So yet most people are still, there are way more people afraid of flying than driving. So they don't like the idea of flying. It engenders fear. It's unnatural. It's whatever they say. It is what it is, whatever. The point being here is safety versus comfort. When we are not feeling comfortable, we sometimes confuse it with being unsafe. And when we confuse it with being unsafe, we now are reluctant to move forward. In other words, fear starts jumping in when we're feeling unsafe, and it frequently triggers fight or flight. And at that point in time, we're not uncomfortable. We're scared. We're afraid. So we react to that. That's one side of the coin. There's another side that we really have to pay attention to. What causes us to learn? And You know, one of the realities here is survival is a great, great teacher. And we have survived for a very, well, not that long, hundreds of thousands, a few 100,000 years. But we've been a very good species that has learned how to survive very, very well. And so we've become, well, arguably the apex predator on the planet. We've dominated every single environment we've been in. We figured out how to overcome mammoths, mastodons, saber-toothed tigers way back in the day, and survive and thrive and grow and build and farm and multiply and create cities and have wars and survive. So, I mean, a lot of this stuff is there, but we figured out all this stuff. And how did we do it? It's because every single time our survival instinct kicks in, the first thing that we do is we don't get afraid. We don't run. We get uncomfortable. And there's some really interesting neuroscience around discomfort. Well, feeling uncomfortable. There's two emotions that you have to have to either one will work, but two emotional conditions. One of being uncomfortable. If you are uncomfortable, and if you notice that you're in an uncomfortable situation, you will notice that that discomfort will kick in, and when it kicks in, it will also tend to fade within 15 to 20 minutes. How come? Because your brain, when you have that chemical cocktail of feeling uncomfortable, and it's a significant enough discomfort, you will actually have the right chemical cocktail, one of two effective chemical cocktails with the neuropeptides you're producing. By the way, neuropeptides are the molecules of emotions, basically, in your brain. And those emotional molecules, they've got a lot of cool things that they do, and I don't have time to go into that and get a profiling in today, so I won't do that. But the neuropeptides are really cool in a couple of fundamental respects. They are the emotion, they're the chemicals of emotions, and they need to have the right cocktail to cause you to actually grow new ganglia. And when you put the right chemical cocktail together, your neurons grow new dendrites, little filaments, and they connect to another neuron, and that is called a synapse. That connection is a synapse, where it takes chemical information, it turns it to electrical, and it jumps the gap between this neuron and its dendrite and goes over to the other cell and creates a synaptic connection. And once that connection is created, it keeps on morphing. Every time it's fired off, it keeps on getting more and more and more efficient. So less energy it needs to go through, that less electrical energy needs to go through to create a more effective, it's electrical energy inside the cell and chemical energy jumping across the synapse. I'm sorry I got that wrong, but I did. I make mistakes like everybody else. I put my pants on backwards every other day. No, just kidding. Sorry, I don't know how come that one came out. It just did. Firing together, wiring together, stuff like that doesn't always work. So just kidding. Anyway, I had a good day. The bottom line here is the chemicals jump across the gap, and what happens is it starts becoming more and more and more aligned, so that it becomes less electrical energy needs to travel through the cell for a higher chemical transfer rate. And the shape of the synapse actually has been photographed and has been caught and changing over time. Every time it fires off, that chemical secretion causes it to change, and it gets easier to secrete more of the appropriate chemicals to create the people firing over and moving on. And that is is so interesting, because the more that you spend time refining these synapses in your brain and the less electricity you have to use, it means it's a less number of calories you have to burn for a thought to go through your brain, because you've got a habit. You've got a habituated pathway, a way of thinking that's there that you've created, because what was wired together, what fires together, wires together. And the more times you use it, the more you get more effective habits. Well, that does two things. That causes us to have the effective habits of surviving up to a point, but not necessarily thriving. So we get comfortable where we're at and we keep on doing the same things. But what got us there was being uncomfortable. So that's the whole weird thing here. If we get too comfortable with our lives, we settle for the status quo. We never become our full potential, because we never actually figure out, how do I do things in an even more successful way than I am? Because we've come to the belief, and this is where beliefs kill you. Behaviors don't, but beliefs do, where you come to this belief that you're good enough. And because you're good enough, you don't have to become great. And in the front of, I was going to say Jim Collins' book, A Good is Good to Great. It says good is the enemy of great.
Yep.
Because when you do things good enough, you stop trying to be better. You don't go for great. But that's because people don't realize that they have to get themselves uncomfortable in order to learn. Now, that's one of the conditions. The other conditions that you need is curiosity. You got to be curious. And some people are just naturally like hardwired to be more curious than others. By the way, that's one of those fundamental hardwired things in even at birth, like the Apgar scale. Anybody have a baby? And the first thing me too. Years ago, 20 some odd, 21 is the youngest one to go. Status quo is overrated. You're right. Status quo really is overrated. But 21 years ago, when Victoria was born, they examined her with the 9 pieces of the Apgar scale. And one of those is, does the baby, when presented to the woman, do they root around looking for the breast to latch on? Some babies, when they're premature, their brain hasn't actually developed enough so that they can cry because they're hungry, but they haven't developed the ability to be curious. And that curiosity would, 30 years ago, it would have killed the baby, because they didn't have the technology that they have today, the little itty bitty intravenous needles and everything else. They couldn't feed the baby. They couldn't get food down, and it would cry, and it would literally starve to death because it was premature and the preemie would die, unfortunately. But the good news is now they also have the needles, but they know that, and they recognize that in the Apgar test. And in that whole thing, they recognize that level of curiosity is there. The more that you cultivate curiosity in yourself and curiosity in others around you, the more effective you're going to likely be. And the more effective you're going to build your team. Now, that's one of the things that I get hired to do, is to create corporate cultures where we can transform entities from being status quo to being different. Now, I've spewed long enough again. Okay?
Question.
Yeah, fire away, John.
You started down a line about we get uncomfortable and it only lasts for about 15 minutes. And there's an open loop there because you didn't explain why it only lasts 15 minutes.
Because it actually literally takes the brain that long to grow new dendrites.
Oh, wow.
Okay. There's a whole lot of things in the body physiologically. If you time it out, you have your tear ducts. If you wind up being sad and crying, your tear ducts will only hold enough tears to have a strong, sustained cry for between, again, 15 to 20 minutes. 30 minutes if you're exceptional, but not likely. In addition to that, tears secrete neuropeptides, and they're the depressant version of the neuropeptides, the emotional chemicals, and there are more stressor and emotional chemicals of depression being gotten out of your body in a good cry than even exercise. Okay, so it just works. If you've ever had a good cry and you feel better afterwards, you know, like everybody knows this.
Even when I just tear up a little bit watching a movie.
Sorry?
I feel better when I tear up a little bit just watching a movie.
There you go.
I embrace it.
It's the Coke commercials that get Trevor.
The Coke
yes, it is. All those Coca-Cola commercials. Yeah, gotta watch them.
Even drink pop.
Yeah, that's okay. So anyway, the point being here is like the reality of the situation is this biology drives us in the real world, and most people don't even think about it. If you have a baby, you'll notice that a baby can generally not have a sustained cry for longer than 20, 25, 30 minutes. They might cry a lot, and it can be extremely irritating and frustrating for the parent if they can't settle, but they can't sustain it. Okay, so it peters out. And just knowing that as a father, as a relatively new father back in the day, when I was a new father and one of our daughters was going through some discomfort in teething and whatnot, it would go in waves. And it would go cry, recover, and it would go in those waves. And again, you're getting rid of neuropeptides, the chemicals of pain. Any emotional chemical can be secreted out through crying, especially negative pain. It gets, all of that stuff gets diminished, and you don't go through constant pain. Pain goes up and down in your body all the time. So those are the realities of it. Now, what does this mean for us in moving forward? So, any other questions from the panelists before I move on? Rebecca, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. That is very interesting about the crying piece of it that you just said. I guess I need to cry more.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. That takes me back to the time when I
don't cry a lot either, Rebecca. So.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Another thing about depression and the neuropeptides in your brain are all chemicals of your emotions. The reality of the situation is your emotional center, yourself, where you say, this is me being normal, operates on depending on the person, between a 3-month and a 6-month moving average. You guys know what a moving average is, where you take the numbers to, John, do you want to explain what a moving average is? You're sounding very knowledgeable on that. And you should know if you're studying stocks.
Okay. So yeah, a moving average, let's say we're going to take an average of the last 10 days. And so we do that today and we count back 10 days and we've got a value. And then tomorrow we start with a new value, the day one value, and we add 10 days. So the average moves over time as we move forward through time. The average changes because the days that we're including in that number that we're averaging are different days and they have different values. So
and what happens is you get a trailing line behind where you are. Your average, your moving average is actually at a different spot than you perceive that you're at in that moment. So that's the key piece. So that average falls behind, but that's your normal. That moving average is where you go, okay, if I fall below that, this is not a good day. But if I'm above that, I'm having a good day. And if I'm at that line, I'm fine. But if I'm below that, this is not a good day. But as you go into a depression, your gap here of where you are starts going down, 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 and you're moving average. And what happens is as you start going down, you can cross and you can go below your moving average. Now you're saying I'm depressed, but now you can pop above it and go, okay, I'm okay. But, you know, all of a sudden you can go back down below and say I'm depressed again. But I don't know if you noticed, but this hand here that was my moving average was always moving down. But my perception is, oh, I'm back to normal, because this moving average is the thing that we call normal. I'm fine. And when you have seen people around you that are depressed and they didn't used to be, and they say they're fine, they've actually gone from up here to down here somewhere, and that is fine for them now. And they may be saying, I'm having a good day. Well, that's because their day is here. And for me, I'm having a good day, but it's not my peak day. And I'm still sick. I still have to take antibiotics and stuff like that. But I'm way better than I was before. So my moving average is I'm good. I am way better. But if I compare myself to before all of this stuff happened, like back, you know, before my mom passed away and all, I go, I haven't hit that yet. I'm not back to that spot. And so that's sort of critical. And what happens is people have this moving average and they go from 3 months to 6 months is whatever they take into it. And it's neurochemical and it's unique to everybody. Everybody's got their own, but scientists have figured this out. And I had a very reputable psychiatrist telling me about all of these things. And he stated to me that your depressed state that you're in is because of the neuropeptides that your brain is generating. And if that chemical cocktail hits that average, even if it's down here, you're going to say you're fine because you cannot distinguish the difference. Okay? So you're not distinguishing it. People around you can see this guy's depressed. You don't think you're depressed. Okay? So the point being to this whole thing is I knew this was happening. And when my dad went into a coma, I knew I was not going to allow myself to go 90 days without dealing with this. What's one of the ways that I can deal with this? The best thing I can do is I gave myself, after the first 2 weeks of it, I said, okay, I'm going to treat my probable depression, because I was crying in the shower and extraordinarily sad. And I went, okay, I'd feel a little bit better after the cry, but life was not good. And I felt like I wanted to cry again because it was so unfair, my dad going into a coma. At the end of the day, what I wound up doing was going out and getting movies that were actually comedies. I started going out and getting movies that caused me to cry, sad movies, Old Yeller, stuff like that you just cry at. You know, that whole thing. Not Old Yeller. I can't say anyway. Don't do Old Yeller. Whatever. Anyway, it's a sad movie. That's all I can say.
Yes, it is.
And I wound up watching those movies and crying for a week. And then the following week my dad and I used to love doing slapstick comedy. And yeah, Brian's song.
Bad one. Ooh.
Yeah, come back, Yeller. Yeah, we got quotes going through here, you know. So we do the sad movies first and then do the happy or funny or laugh your face off movies. And since it was my dad and I both enjoyed slapstick comedy, I would get, you know, a whole lot of that and watch those old time slapstick comedy movies. It was Three Stooges and whatnot. So it was hilarious. I love those guys. And that helped me normalize back up without getting down. Now, I went 14 years with a normalized new normal, and I didn't realize until my dad passed away how I had been habituated to being in a semi-depressed state that was my new normal until he passed away, and how stressed I was walking around for 14 years because every time the phone rang after 11 p.m. at night, that's when the hospital would phone and say, Blair, you got to come down. your dad's not going to make it. You know, he may not make it the night. You got to come down. I did that, like, I don't know, 20, 30 times over 14 years. And so you get these
Did you
calls.
stay in the coma 14 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, that was brutal.
Yeah.
That was very, very, very tough. So and by the way, that's also, like I shared with you before, is going into the coma, like I had mindset before. I trained people on mindset, actually, and life skills. And I thought that was the thing to do until my dad went into a coma. Then I realized mindset left me. It did not help me cope. It did not help me manage myself. It was, sorry, I'm just going to say it the way I feel it. It was a lie that was sold to me that I bought. And I paid money for it. I paid good money for it, you know, for the training and for everything else. And I felt so ripped off. And that's where I went. I'm putting on my researcher cap. I've got the students, I've got the college, I can research this, and I've got life skills. And if I didn't have life skills, I wouldn't have had a model to be able to help build out of this whole thing. And that's the differentiator for me, and that original stuff, because it gave me a model and it gave me coping skills. And that's what life skills is coping skills. Most average people do not need coping skills. What they need is problem solving skills and how to think differently. What mindset was supposed to do, mind models do. And that's the big difference. So we've got to get our comfort zone leveraged up so that we actually get comfortable being uncomfortable so that we can learn. Okay, now, in fact, you don't have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You just have to let being uncomfortable not trip you into fear. And so it's fight or flight. And it's not about safety. It's about being okay with being uncomfortable. And that is critical so that you can start figuring out, how do I work smarter, not harder? And that's really that whole key, because most people, me included, I just started putting time in after I got ripped off with, you know, the mindset piece didn't work. I just started putting all kinds of time in. And then I realized, hey, I got to be smart about this. What do I know? And I had to figure out something different. So again, enough of me spewing today. I'm sorry, I'm spewing a lot today. Had a lot to say, I guess. But what I want to do is I want to start asking you questions. And I want to start saying, what type of situations have you found that, and I'm going to pick on Rebecca first. So Rebecca, what situations have you found yourself in where you found yourself being uncomfortable, and describe to me that kind of scenario? Where are you uncomfortable in your life? Okay, I can't hear you for whatever reason.
Public speaking of any sort.
Okay, cool. And what are you doing to deal with that? Do you recognize, by the way, that you're public speaking right now?
Absolutely. The first time that I was on this and I had you file me, I was terrified.
Yeah, honestly, I recall that.
I had that internal just clenched feeling like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But what I've been doing is I've been taking every opportunity to do that, because it's not that I'm unsafe. It's a perceived judgment of what people might think or say about what I have to say that is not effective for me nor them. And so I've just been taking every opportunity to not overthink it and just share. There's no right or wrong. It's effective or ineffective. And if it's ineffective, do it again or tweak.
Another mind model at work here. Effective versus ineffective. Well done. Good job. And what's the result of that for you in your life?
Building self-confidence.
Exactly. How come?
Because now I'm proving to myself that all these perceived judgments that I used to have that were no longer effective have no bearing, and I do have skills, I do have things to share, and I can and am going to affect change in myself and others. Okay, one of the things I was talking about in IBC earlier today was
What happens when somebody gets grit in their voice? John, did you hear grit in Amy's voice? Like, I got this.
Yeah, right there at the end.
Yeah, right there at the end.
Well, also, not only did you hear grit, which you heard positive words, they were stronger words. I can, they weren't maybe, so her words changed.
Correct. Her language pattern changed. So you got a tonal shift and you got an intention shift. Right. And what does that mean, Jamie? You're jumped in there, so carry on.
Oh, thanks. Well, it just means that she's owning it now.
How do you know that?
How do I know that she's doing that? Or
how do you know?
Because you can hear it. You can hear it in her words, on the forward words that she's, I can, I am, I will, versus right. There's no doubt. And so she's owning what she's saying. She's not being tentative, she's not shying away from it. It's real. It's there. So
yep. Great. Perfect. John, what else is she doing?
Well, so when you said, how do you know, my instant reaction was, I can feel it. I mean, I recognized it from times when I felt grit and just, it was familiar.
I'm sorry, I'm all excited because here's another neuroplasticity lesson. So have you got any idea what in your brain gives you that ability to do that? That is science-based.
Mirror neurons?
Pardon me?
Is it mirror neurons?
They are mirror neurons, yes. Gold star for John. Yay. Yeah, they are mirror neurons. That's exactly it. So you felt it because she was doing it. And when that comes over and you use your mirror neurons, bam, you get it how she's feeling it. So you get to actually exhibit, or not exhibit, but participate in that sense and slash sensory input that she's actually delivering. Now, we can ignore these things and call them, whatever, but the science behind it is that's mirror neurons. That's how come we could feel it and know that it's true without doubting it. So,
guys, can I get into the mirroring where they study where if you lean, somebody else leans, and you start changing? Is that kind of in that because you're feeling it and you're watching somebody do it, so you're mirroring? I was just curious.
Matching and mirroring is a slightly different behavior reality. When they've done the few studies that I've seen on this that are actually scientific as opposed to just people running their own stuff, the short answer is yes, but to a limited degree. Okay, so what happens there is there's social habituation that happens. We are giving nonverbal cues, and those nonverbal cues are heavily societally driven. Yeah. They are not necessarily driven by mirror neurons. Yeah. That same, because people will not necessarily have the same feelings in the same situation. They'll have different feelings, but they'll do the same behavior.
Got it. That makes
sense. So that's how
body language also has changed.
It has.
A lot. I mean, and Rebecca, when you're saying you were scared to death, yes, and it was very obvious you were scared on your first, when he did your profile, but just every time I come on and you're on now, you get you're so much more comfortable just in that. I mean, it's just very easy to see.
Exactly. It is very easy to see. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this topic here, risk being wrong. There isn't any money here, but there is a chance for you to risk being wrong. So what might you be wrong about now that you might have to update yourself on?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, Rebecca.
What might I be wrong about now that I'm going to have to update?
Yeah. What may no longer hold water to you.
Public speaking being a scary thing.
Right.
And
you might have actually gone to the point where it's no longer scary. It might be uncomfortable. It might not be well practiced enough, or it might actually be interesting and challenging for you.
And it's funny that you say that, Blair, because I actually get a sense of excitement when I get to do my Facebook Live.
Exactly.
Share, okay, because it's a get to share, right? And when I get to interact with people, because that feeling that I had allowed myself to believe, my barrier of, all of that crap that we don't need to talk about, was not serving me well. And so it's the excitement, the anticipatory, like, momentum is going, right? I'm building my self-confidence. I'm helping others. I am truly living what I've been wanting and thinking and dreaming about is actually being, acted upon. It's working.
Absolutely. It is being acted upon and it is working. And we have to update. So Paul also says, how do we not misread? That's a really good question. We can't, but we can test. We can't necessarily misread, but we can test what we think is true to find out if it actually is true. In other words, what are the conditions that are there for whatever it is that we believe we're doing? We actually go, like what you just said, I have a fear of public speaking, yet you've taken every opportunity you can to get out there and speak in public and volunteer yourself when you do that. And one of the things it comes down to is it comes down to testing. You have to test.
There's no surefire way to be right all the time.
There's nothing. God, I'm not perfect. Okay. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I make little mistakes from time to time every other month. I've tried 300 times in this program tonight. No, at least 5, significant ones, but you test and you course correct. And the faster that you can recognize your own behaviors as being either effective or ineffective. And one of the key things here is you got to remember your clothes. This shirt is like a behavior. I can change my behavior easily. But if your belief is, oh, I have a tough time with public speaking, where does that live? Does it live like a behavior, like I can just change it and go, okay, I can get rid of that? Or is that you? Is that like in your head and part of how you've labeled yourself? And now you're going to live to that label. And so that requires updates. And especially when you've changed your beliefs have to be looked at and explored and checked out here from time to time. And you actually went, hey, I'm excited now. I'm not terrified. I'm excited. And before you looked terrified. Okay, I'm going to make myself do this and I'm terrified. Well, you looked it. You were very, very, very congruent. Well done. Gold star for terrified. You did terrified really well. Okay, yet you went through it and you lived through it. Okay. By the way, John, I saw you laughing when I'm doing 2 thumbs up and gold star for being terrified. What am I doing with that?
Well, you're de-identifying it. It's, you're emphasizing, A is a behavior and, it's something under your control. So you did it, and okay, you did that. Now you can do something different. So it's yeah.
When I do that, I am changing the label that she's caused to place on herself, right? And I'm actually spending time creating a positive feeling to something that was negative.
So weren't you doing it like you have to reevaluate?
Yes.
Look back. And then as you
Who
change.
did the reevaluation?
Huh?
Who did the reevaluation? Who did the update? Me or she did. Rebecca had to.
Right.
Absolutely.
So she had to reevaluate, and it might have been that she had to tell us to reevaluate if she wasn't doing it herself. But now she's reevaluated, and she has now updated the label that she's given herself.
Okay, when we get into rewiring the mind or mind model coach training, you're going to start recognizing that it's a little bit more than that. The update is nice, but not necessarily effective. It works really well if you can start creating a additional bridge with somebody, for somebody, or with yourself. And I do this with myself all the time, is I try and figure out, do a deeper evaluation, do a second tier evaluation, and figure out what did I do that actually worked. Now, what I do is I take it actually 2 or 3 steps deeper, and I try and find a humorous way of addressing her terrifying moment after it's terrifying. Not while it's being terrifying. She's out of it. She's done it. And this gives her a new behavior. I'm behaving differently to her old belief.
Got it. Right.
That teaches her that this is now a behavior that she's in control of at a subconscious level. There's that.
So you're trying to change your beliefs into positive behaviors.
I'm trying to, when she states her belief has changed
Right.
into something that could be just another positive belief about herself, I want to influence that to try and get her to see it as a behavior.
Right. Got it.
So what I do that is I go shirt, behavior, change. She goes in control of it. I got it. And now can I get her to laugh at the old one? And that humor causes it to collapse. And she doesn't see herself that way. And she feels fine. And she barely even notices what I'm doing unless I make a big deal out of it, like I'm doing right now, and teach the world everything that she just did.
Yeah.
Okay. Eventually putting herself in situations that help us overcome fear. Yes. Was judging myself with even being consciously aware. Absolutely. Like that's a common one, Paul. Then asking, what do you fear? Is putting me in an evaluated state. Gotcha. Yes. Evaluation is critical. And to see it as a behavior of evaluating, not as a judgment that's sort of evaluative judgment, that messes everything up big time. We got to get it clear. We got to get it clean. We got to get it simple, and it's got to be externally verified. And so what I try and do as early on as I possibly can is get somebody else to give me input. She didn't ask for input, Rebecca, but she's on my webinar, and I get to run my webinar the way I see fit, because it is my webinar, and our webinar, Trevor's and mine. But yeah, right. Excuse me. I apologize for that, Trevor. It's our webinar.
No offense taken.
Okay, good.
It's named after you. I can see
okay.
where you got that from.
Some weird guy. Anyway, Rebecca got to be shifted, and all I'm trying to do is lock in the shift.
Right.
She did the shifting. I'm just trying to lock it in, because I'm trying to give her a dramatically different experience for her to have in her brain that says, hey, I behaved this way, and I started laughing at that whole thing there. That's not me. That's the old me.
Well, doesn't it, like in your brain, it's kind of connecting the dots to a new pathway.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm doing. And I want that new pathway to be one that is positive. And if I can get her to laugh about it, then I've got one of the most positive firing mechanisms that you can get.
Right.
She goes, hey, absolutely. If you can go into a situation where you were previously terrified and laugh about it, you're either crazy or you've changed. One of the two. And I'm not kidding about that. You're either crazy or you've changed. And that's the facts. Like, I've seen crazy people laugh, and they're crazy, but it's crazy laugh. It's sort of like what Jamie's doing right now. No, just kidding.
Thought I'd demonstrate.
Thank you. Appreciate that. A good crazy laugh. Okay. But no, seriously, I don't know if you've ever heard people that have that crazy laugh, like it's like they're uncontrollable. It's scary as hell sometimes because you don't know what was funny, you don't know what was going on, and they're laughing because everything inside of themselves is either scaring the hell out of themselves that they wind up laughing, or they wind up crying sometimes, or they wind up laughing so hard that they wind up crying, or crying so hard that they wind up laughing. These are not necessarily overwhelmingly negative situations, except if there is no verifiable outside source for that situation to happen with. That's when you've got a crazy person. And that's what I used to deal with. Those were some of our clients. Okay, so I know crazy. Okay, I know crazy. I'm not one of them yet. Just kidding. Sorry, I'm in some weird mood today, boy. It's a good one. It's a good day. I'm having a good day. Yep, I'm having a good day. Okay, that was huge at the workshop for me. Yes, it was, Lisa. Good job. So, yeah, there's lots of pieces where you could start shifting yourself and you could start doing this. And one of the key things here is this was an incremental shift that I did in a dramatic way, but the incremental shift was where Rebecca was before. We didn't deal with money on this one, but the incremental shift is, Rebecca, now that you've made this shift, I'd like you to take it out for a test drive. How do you feel about you and talking in public now? What does that do? Think about yourself being here on the show live. You know, hundreds of people are going to watch this. We usually get a couple 240 plus. If we promote it, it's can be like 25,000, 15,000 people. Yeah, I am. I'm turning the knife. Yeah, I'm twisting the knife here. So what is it? And you're laughing. So that's a good sign. So is it terrifying you or what? What's going on?
The idea is somewhat uncomfortable, but I'm not allowing myself to go into judgment about, okay, like overthinking it, right? Because what I have to share is what I have to share. If I learn from it and other people learn from it, it's effective. And that's really all that matters, period.
And the story, huge. Did you notice how she did take that emotional thing and it got smaller and smaller as she talked and got firmer and firmer, and the firmer and firmer expanded. So it did sort of one of these. Okay. You brought down the emotion and brought up what you chose to bring up. Who's in control?
Me.
You're right. It is not your belief. It's you. That's pretty powerful.
And it feels good.
Yeah. It's like, you've got it, girl. Like, you own this. That's the whole piece of it. And it's great confidence. Actually, technically it's not confidence. Paul, we have a lesson on confidence versus self-confidence. This one is self-confidence. Yeah. And it is self-confidence because she self-identified it. I didn't have to. She did. She did this to herself. She brought down the thing that could have caused her to get into fear and brought up that which she wants to be focusing on. And it's choice. It's conscious choice. Well, what if we do that in business? What if we apply the same self-management model to ourselves in business? And we risk being wrong, which is we risk this, but we test to find out what's working. And as that whole thing is, the ineffective stuff that we're doing, the wrong stuff tends to fade away. The more effective stuff starts going up and it starts dominating. And did you notice that everything that was done with Rebecca today, with herself or with me, was done in an incremental level? It wasn't done willy-nilly. Yes, I had fun. Yes, I played around, but it wasn't done of, you got it, that's it, you're done. Okay, go change the world now. It's not a flip of the switch. It's incremental, and you do it multiple times, and you keep on testing. Yes, Christine, absolutely. Incremental steps. And with money, you make it as small as possible to get a legitimate test. You keep your money down to spend it to find out what's going on. And if you're a client of, or a student of EMPs, then that's a very good way to go. You don't spend tens of thousands of dollars on Facebook ads right off the hop, as I did, and lose it all and get very little input. Like very, very dumb in hindsight, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's what the people that I said, that I hired at the time said to do. And it was an agency and they just hosed me. Well, then I realized, okay, that's the dumb move and I'm not doing that again. What I am doing is I'm going to wind up learning something so that I can figure out how to do it more effectively. And I'm going to find people that do it effectively first. And eventually that brought me to Tim and Matt and EMP. And, you know, I start learning how to do the testing. And then also, Kurt Malley and others that have other models for being able to do the tests inexpensively so that you don't go broke running your tests. And in business, that's the same thing that you have to be able to do. Whether or not you're doing it online or in the real world, you have to find that smallest possible meaningful test and run it. Sorry, the name of it is slipping my mind. And in bricks and mortar, it's called something, and it just, I had it on the tip of my tongue. If anybody can think of it, it's like lean. It's part of the lean startup. And I just can't think of it. Oh, it's frustrating me. Anyway, whatever.
You're talking about a minimum viable product?
Yeah, well, that's one of them. Yeah, minimum viable product would be one of them. So you start with that lean thing of a minimum viable product. What's the least amount that you could spend to get a product that more or less works, that you can see if the market will actually purchase? Okay, so minimum viable product. Yes, I was. So, and you're absolutely right. Yes, test one element at a time. Absolutely true. You don't want to go out there and keep on testing everything simultaneously. You want to test one thing at a time, not 20 things at a time, not even two things. You want to test one thing. And you want to see what those results are. And as you make those changes, you start noticing, and this also requires the discipline of documentation in business. So you really have to be disciplined and document what you're doing. The good news here is if you're running Facebook ads, and most of us are in internet marketing of some form or another, Facebook documents. But then you have to figure, but they document everything. And unfortunately, some of what they document is not necessarily what you need. So you need to find people that have figured out how to interpret that documentation so that you can get meaningful content from that documentation. And that's that last piece, is meaningful content. Okay, wrapping up here. So if I hadn't done my spew, I would have been an hour on everything else. This is the content I wanted to cover today. What did you guys get? What did you learn? Rebecca, what's your takeaway? And then John, and then Jamie.
I love the reinforcing of my good behavior pattern.
Nice. Okay. What did that do for you, that reinforcement?
It gave it an extra level of validation. I mean, I had the self-confidence, from doing the actions and the feelings inside. So, yes.
What was that? Sorry, I didn't quite hear that, Tim.
It was I just have more self-confidence. The more self-confidence was reinforced, and it allows me to, it's validated by somebody else. And so that just reinforces it even more.
Yeah, all I said, Blair, was that basically you gave her the confidence piece.
Yeah, I did. I gave her confidence. She gave herself self-confidence.
Right.
And that's absolutely spot on. She can disagree with it and still build self-confidence, by the way. So even if I don't do it, she now knows my stuff doesn't matter what I say. It's how she interprets it. And if she disagrees with it, she can go, I have a different experience about my life. I don't agree with what Blair just said. Hey, I now know I can disagree with him or somebody else, and that's okay. I don't have to believe everything that everybody else tells me about me. Okay, because they have, I think that looks to me like it is a hidden agenda, or they have something that I did to them in the past that they're now hanging on to, or they've got triggered from their past. This is out of balance. Okay, so that is so critical. And you can still build self-confidence from that. Okay, so it doesn't have to just be positive. Okay, well done, well done. So failure is not bad. It's part of the testing process. That's so true. The fail fast falling forward. We've got to fail. We have to fail in order to proceed. We cannot become successful without failing. Okay?
Yeah, you risk being broke if you're afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. You really do. John, Becky, scale of 1 to 10 for today.
9.
Awesome. Great. John.
This is awesome. This is all resonating with me so much. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, well, just being on this panel is kind of modeling the risk being wrong versus going broke, because, you know, there is some risk sitting here and exposing ourselves. But the benefits are, you know, so much, and there's so much feedback. I learned so much more doing it. I mean, I'm flooded with different memories and experiences. I recently had to give a speech at our son's wedding, and I stressed over that for days. And it went great. And because I know now the mind model of confidence versus self-confidence, I'm properly using the positive feedback that I'm getting from other people to reinforce my self-confidence, where in the past I've kind of I've had a very selective memory about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you poo-pooed it, you'd brush it off.
Yeah, just brush it off.
And discount it. Yeah.
Discounted, heavily discounted.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks very much, Jay. Thank you. Next.
Yeah, so this is just, this is all resonating very strongly with me.
Good. Awesome. And thank you. And I also know that from your language, how deeply this is resonating with you. It's very deep. And because in your description of what you were saying here, you described yourself as the person that was evaluating it, not buying into somebody else's view of you. You were self-evaluating. So that's like as good as it gets. And that's like spot on, John. So really well done. Really well done. Okay. Jamie.
Wow. It reminds me of the fact that I know that my brain can reconnect. And with the brain injury, it just is a neat thing to remind myself that I can still reconnect those synapses and continue growing in my abilities, not necessarily to be who I was before, but just in the abilities I have now.
Absolutely.
And so true. Right. And so it just is. So that was a really good, that's probably what I got out of most. Studying the brain after a brain injury, you tend to do that. But then I have the memory of not remembering things that I have. So when you start speaking, the dots start connecting, and then it's like, oh, yes. But I also love the fact that beliefs are what get you in trouble. And
more times than not, way more times than not.
And I love that when I drive people to this webinar, it's to get them to understand that there are steps to get you out of those beliefs and into behaviors.
Yes.
And because people are so owning their beliefs, like it's their right to have them. I don't know, but
well, it is your right to have the belief. It just doesn't mean that it's effective.
Right. And so, but so that they can change and that there are steps to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So very
significant steps.
Yeah. And I'd say 9 as well.
Thank you. The other thing that you remind me of bringing up here, just really quick, is, when people have their beliefs, they have the right to their belief. Don't get me wrong, not trying to take away anything, but all behaviors are not born equal.
Correct.
Okay, so the mind models are behavior-based, but they're also tested so that they get a predictable result in excess of 80% of the time with people with psychiatric problems, and in excess of 90% of the time if you're normal. So, it's high probability this stuff is going to work. And if I had those odds and went to Vegas, I'd break the frickin' bank.
Yeah.
Okay. All I got to do is just keep on playing and going through. And the interesting thing, the more competent you are with your mind models, the more practiced you are, the reality is you will be able to course correct on yourself so fast that other people won't even see you making a mistake.
That's cool. Well, and I know them just by being here mainly, but I was explaining to someone that's in network marketing on my team why. They asked me if I knew my why, and I was like, oh.
Red flag.
So I was explaining that I don't do the why, and that I stay in the how and where.
And what, hopefully. Yeah.
And what? And so, but I was going through that, and I said, and I started explaining the loop onto where, you stay in the past or you go into the present, but you forget the now. And it was like, it sounded like I knew what the heck I was talking about. and so that person is going to start coming on here. She happens to be moving right now. And so, but she's like, wow, that's pretty profound. And I had to give you credit. I did not take the credit. And so, but it was really neat to be able to verbalize and explain it versus just, I don't know, he says so.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? The weird thing was, at the end of the day, two things I don't practice anymore. I don't practice neurolinguistic programming because my coaches and mentors in that, my trainers actually would come back with when a process didn't take on a client, and I was dealing with, again, people that were potentially suicidal, they would say that's their problem. They're being resistive. People don't threaten suicide. Okay, I got to fill you guys in a little bit more. It doesn't sound reasonable the way that I'm saying it. I did a lot of counseling back in the day with transsexuals, people that were getting gender changes. Mm-hmm. And it takes between a year and 2 years, depending on their psychological state. But one of the realities of that community is they are at extreme risk for suicide, extreme risk. So when somebody in that community tells me that they're going to kill themselves, I take them very, very seriously. And when they say, I'm trying to do my best, I don't like the idea of dying, but this is the only out I see, I don't take that as they're being resistive. Okay, they're trying hard not to die. Okay, they're fighting. They're on my side trying to say, how do I keep myself from not killing myself and not going over the edge? So I didn't buy that. So that was when I started seeing NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, breaking down. That's, even though I was trained in it and certified in it, I'm going, excuse me, I have another problem with this. Okay, like, hello, this shouldn't be breaking down, especially under these conditions.
Right.
This is where it should be stepping up and working. And that's another thing that drove me, because that was after my dad went into a coma, and I'd already started figuring out the core concepts that became mind models. But I actually took NLP because I thought it had figured out this stuff that I'm lazy. Okay. I wanted somebody just to give me a freaking answer. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. My dad's in a coma. I don't want to have to think about this. I just give me a freaking answer. Okay. Let me do something. I'll take the training. I'll pay whatever. I'll just do it. And you train me. Okay. I thought it was NLP. And again, I went the same thing with mindset and paid out money thinking it was going to be there. It left. And then I'm working with suicidal people and the stuff that they're getting me to do with them isn't working. And I go, oh, man, there's got to be something that doesn't mess up people's heads. That's safe. That's reliable. That's identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable. And the models there that were in life skills and, and all of the fundamentals in life skills and all of those skills were there that got people to cope, problem solve, and become successful. If you start working on those core pieces of coping, problem solving, and becoming successful, mind models have to incorporate the coping, and the problem solving. And people will become successful. But it's also got to be identified, repeatable, and duplicatable. So that's where the birth of mind models kicked in. And this is a good one to tie this up because it's flow loop right back to the beginning of tonight's thing. And it's super cool. We need to relate it to children. Raised our kids with 3 whys in a day, you're grounded in this house. Like you're grounded. You don't give me 3 whys in a day, because you're grounded. And both girls got grounded more than once for going into whys. They didn't like the kids at school that much. The teachers didn't like our kids at school because they started holding teachers accountable. Created certain limitations, certain challenges for them. But by far and away, they're commented on as young adults as, wow, your kids are really mature for their age. Wow, they're really capable. Wow, they're all it's like, wow. And things work well. So just sharing. So as you guys get more exposure to mind models or come into mind model coach training, you're going to see more stuff happen. Okay, I got to stop talking here because I promised I'd do a profiling session. So I got to wrap you guys up and ask Trevor to...
Happy Thanksgiving for all of you Americans.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans out there, because Canada had it almost a month ago in October. So, we're already Thanksgiving Day. We had our turkey. So good turkey.
We'll take your Black Friday deals, though.
Yeah,
That's
really.
right.
We do have Black Friday at the same day you guys do.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, it's good to see everybody.
Nice seeing you too, Jamie, John, Rebecca, Tim, Connie.
Okay, I'll move you guys back.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Now, since everybody's back there, what we can do is we can now promote somebody else on to who would like to be profiled. So if there's somebody in the participants group that is up for being profiled, feel free, raise your hand, and I will just do one. We won't do multiples tonight.
You want to fill in on what profiling is? We haven't
actually, do you want to?
Weeks, actually.
Yeah, it's been several weeks since I've done it. So, did you want to?
It looks like Paul wants to do it.
Yeah, Paul, hit the hand. Paul wants to. Oh, that's Jamie. Yeah, you got to raise your hand. And how do you raise your hand on here?
There's a button somewhere for you guys to raise your hand.
Yeah, it's.
But you do want to do it, Paul? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yep. Okay, that's fine. Bottom middle. Hey, Paul, and you got to unmute in the bottom corner.
Bottom left. Just have to press the mic.
There you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, I was missing my options on the bottom. Hi there.
Hi. Hi, Paul. I'm Blair.
Hey, Blair. Nice to meet you.
Good comments, by the way, on
Yeah.
your stuff. So nice. Good stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, so profiling. What's profiling? I listen to language patterns, and I make high probability determinations based on very small amounts of language pattern. I need to hear you talk for 10 to 30 seconds, and then I start spewing once I get enough time. As you can tell from tonight, I'm good at spewing.
Sure.
And then you rate me at the end. You give me a scale on 1 to 10. I have a specific number, and it's not 10 that I go for because I don't like freaking people out. So I try not to do that. But if it is a 10, then that's fine. If I haven't freaked you out totally and it's a 10, that's fine. It can be a 10. So whatever it is, that is. And if you want, depending on where you go here, sometimes I actually flip the profiling into more coaching.
Okay.
Yeah. And yes, Christine, yes, kids and animals. Horse trainer, Melissa. Anyway, that's another story. My wife is a horse. We used to train horses, used to ride very, very well, high level and trained until her horse died. Was training for dressage at the Olympic level here in Canada. Okay, Paul, tell me about yourself.
Okay, I'm 41. I am in a relationship of 20 years with my partner. Good, healthy, strong relationship. I have been an EMP since January here. I joined Fast Track program here back in July. I do that outside of my full-time corporate job here in the banking world for the last 6.5 years, but I've been in corporate for over 20. I'm finding new ways to explore possibilities that I didn't realize were there before. And I'm really putting myself in a place to evaluate instead of judge and not hold myself in the past. Like I recently realized.
Okay. Don't go into that level of explanation. I already got that stuff figured out, and now you're doing my job. So I'm supposed to fill you in on those pieces.
Okay, sure.
So hobbies. What do you do for hobbies?
Oh, sure. Travel. We're going to the Dominican Republic here this next week.
Nice.
Super excited about that. Probably kayak, probably go snorkeling, just hang out at the beach.
Cool.
And just really relax.
Cool.
So.
Okay. Other than your partner, any other people in your relationship? Kids, family?
I have my parents here in Lincoln.
Nice.
They're both here in Lincoln. I've got a brother here in Lincoln, his wife, and a nephew of mine who's
nice.
Absolutely just an awesome, funny little guy. He's
okay.
Super rambunctious.
Okay, so moving for Lincoln, which state?
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you want to know? What do you want me to fill you in about yourself?
I've never done this before, so I guess surprise me.
No, it doesn't quite work like that. The surprises goes it's like I'm going to be here forever. I've got all the data I need and then some. So how can I help you? What's
how do I get myself out of a stuck state more quickly? That's what I need to be more effective.
Okay. Sure. I can definitely, your language pattern is pretty clear. When you were starting to go into the past stuff, that was like, well, that's, there's lots of stuff from your past that you've gone through. You've gone through quite a number of personal challenges over the years, and you've risen out of them effectively. You've dodged bullets, as it were, not physically, but metaphorically, career-wise, and moved when you had to, or shifted when you had to, not necessarily had to, but chose to do it. And I think it was very intentional because you knew that the environment was not conducive and no longer effective for you. There was no more growth. There was no more upside potential. And you saw that clearly. Other people's limiting beliefs about you and who you are and what you could or couldn't do. And that was not something that you were comfortable with doing. You are you are complicated in a number of ways. Your language pattern has a number of complications to it. In other words, you're both a gentle soul and a force to be reckoned with simultaneously. You focus in at figuring stuff out, and you get really, really focused in on that, and you make things happen. And you make things happen by doing things directly, but the subtleties are not lost on you. So you will, I want to say back channel. It's not exactly back channel, but you'll use the back door to create the structure of what you need to do. And you'll watch your timing as these things down below start building up. And then you can do bottom down, top up, or top down, bottom up simultaneously and do, you've got that kind of mind that can see those kind of issues. You don't like it, and you like it all at the same time in corporate, because it means that there are people that will perceive you not the way that you intended to, but more negatively than they do, because you're outthinking them. And quite frankly, that threatens some people. And especially when they're your superiors, they don't necessarily like that, and that becomes problematic. And then they start limiting growth and start limiting potential. And you haven't been in a place actually, that's not true. You have been in places where some of your superiors, your bosses, have seen you and appreciate, what's going on highly effectively. But they weren't in a place to really help you grow more than what they could. And that's where you got capped out. So you moved on. You would transition. The others that have come in more frequently are the previous 6-year one, the one that you left a while ago. That one was really needed to be huge. You needed to get out of there for that one. That was not a good situation for you at all to be in. Somebody was playing head games and many other things. And I just don't want to even get in there with that. It's messy. And I'm glad you got out. I really like the fact that you're seeing yourself as potentially independent and figuring out, how do I do this thing so that I can be independent and start taking more charge of my own life, and more importantly, your own time. And that's really one of the key elements that I see you being able to do, as figuring out and being in control of your time, which you're just sort of starting to get control of, but not 100%, but more. Yeah. And that is highly leverageable, because the more that you can focus in on that. Now, one of the good things is that you have the ability to focus in on what you need to choose to do with your time, but you're not completely clear on what are those things that I need to do to really leverage yourself. And you talked a little bit about evaluation versus judgment, and you're blending the two in your language still. And I would seriously go back in the archives here and look at the one on evaluation versus judgment, and really spend some time. Either that, I apologize for what I'm going to do here, but you're somebody that I seriously think could benefit from rewiring your mind for wealth, because that course gives you people that it's like what I do here is I bring up a panel of people, but I even more active interaction with them on stage in front of an audience and forcing them to work through the issue than I did tonight. I think I've seen you hear your name up before. Is this your first night, or have you been here before?
First night here,
Okay, cool.
but we're added on Facebook together. So.
Oh yes, great.
Yes.
Okay, good. So the issue here is rewiring your mind for wealth is like, sorry for saying it this way, but if you think tonight is good, take a look at that stuff. And because it's 15 hours of this kind of stuff on steroids, and it's got a workbook that gives the bridging mind models in between. And that would really super leverage you. But just going back for free, if you don't want to spend a dime, just go back to evaluation versus judgment and that mind model. That mind model is so critical for you, because even though you're calling it evaluation and you're calling it judgment, you're not working it through and you're not seeing the difference of where you drift and you start blending it. So it's sort of like, it's a little bit more, but it still is judgment, whereas it's not like total judgment and it's just a little bit of evaluation. It's sort of doing this sort of thing back and forth. And I'd like you to separate the two and go, that's a judgment. This is an evaluation. Okay. And when you get that kind of clarity in your brain, you're going to know you know it rather than feel. See, you're still saying it. And I bet you dimes to dollars if I say, how do you know that you're evaluating effectively? The first thought that goes across your mind is, I feel it. It feels right for you because you trust your gut. You trust your instincts. And that's super important. Then you rationalize it. Then you give me the cognitive part. And you may not say the emotion, but you feel it. And then you find the rationale behind it, as opposed to finding the logic and then figuring out the emotion that goes with the logic after the fact. You trust your gut because your gut has been right so many times. And like, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying don't trust it, but you trust it when it is appropriate. When is trusting your gut appropriate? It's when you have to make an assumption. And when we are in brand new situations and we don't have data points, you have to make an assumption. It's not judgment is not all bad, but you've got to be able to separate the two and know this is a judgment. It's got to be tested and verified so that I know this now is, when it's tested and verified, this is an evaluation and it's externally verifiable. And you go, hold it, I'm going to try this judgment. Well, it sort of worked. Good enough. Well, is that externally verifiable? Sort of. That's where it's sort of like blended. It sort of is and sort of isn't, and that's where it sort of gets messy for you. You were so leverageable in creating wealth and creating whatever you want in your life. You know, you're scraping the tip of what's possible. Okay. You're just teasing it a little bit. You have the drive, you have the people skills, you have the connections. When you choose to make those connections, you can connect to anybody you want to. And you have that brilliant ability to be a connector. And you have a brilliant ability to think through and be a problem solver. And you have a brilliant ability to figure out the gaps where other people have and help fill those gaps for people. And you don't fully recognize how good you are. Yet you know you're great. You know you're exceptional. You know, I would strongly suggest that you know you're good. You know that you're very good. But you don't have any idea how incredible you could become if you got. See, again, the other piece here is confidence versus self-confidence. You still blend the two. even at your level of game. And you're not playing a small game. You're playing a very good game, but you still you still do this sort of thing all over the place where you blunt things. And if you got it clear, this is what I do with multimillionaires, as I just help them get this level of clarity. And then they take it from doing 8 figures to 9 figures. And sometimes doing 5 figures to 7 figures. 75,000 to 1.2 million personal income inside of 18 months. Earl Formata. Another guy, 40,000 to $2 million, 12 months. Another one of my clients.
Yeah.
Okay. When you get this kind of clear, you've got the kind of mind that once you get this kind of clear on your focus and your intent, and it's got to be in a market that you can make that kind of money, because it's market driven. It is not just, I'm going to open a corner grocery store and make that kind of money that fast. It doesn't work like that. You got to be in the right market. But if you are, with your kind of headspace, with your kind of knowledge base, with your kind of skills at all these levels that I've already mentioned, the sky's the limit for you, buddy. You're not even tapping it. You're not knocking on the ceiling.
Yeah, excited. Yeah.
Yeah. So
appreciate that.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry for it might sound like I'm blowing smoke, but I'm not. I'm just telling you what I heard and how you say it, and where your gaps are. And your gaps are on the upside, because you have been, I would almost argue, in some ways, you've been scared. Scared isn't exactly the right word. There's some level of apprehension about being this good.
There is, yes.
And
yes, that's what it is. And if I can throw something else out there about me personally.
Sure.
I've been in the business world. I've also been in the design world. I function equally well in a visual, 3-dimensional, put it together in my mind and build it out in physical form space, but then also breaking down numbers, and then also working on relationships and being very comfortable and getting on an open platform like this. The question I have for myself is, what's holding me back?
You're the way that you're organizing how you think about it. You're taking status quo fears that other people have, and they're not named and labeled because they might be, you're modeling other people that are millionaires, but they don't think the way you do. But you're modeling how extraordinary but average individuals think. And if you just got out of your own way and you understood how to behave more effectively, you'd be crazy good. And that's what mind models are here to do. Okay? Seriously, that's what they're designed to do. That, like, you'd be one of my $10,000 a day clients. That's the kind of mind that I would want to play with, because you're highly, highly leverageable, but you're not getting out of your own way. And somebody's got to kick you in the ass and smarten you up and say, start learning this stuff. And
I'm okay with hearing that.
I know you are. You laugh at it. It's what you love. That laughter was not fear. That laughter was, give me more.
Yeah.
I get it. That's how come I said it. It's not, this isn't a negative. This is a huge positive. And who's ever put this kind of commitment into you before? Like, nobody. I look at all of those people. Well, okay, that's not true, because what I just flipped back, I just sort of put back the pages. And I bet you have to go back to school, either somewhere between elementary to high school. Somewhere in there, you had a couple of teachers that saw the possibility.
Yeah. I had an experience in high school. I was in choir class. I was in second year, and we had moved from Virginia Beach to Lincoln. And my choir teacher believed in me enough, and it freaked me out at the time of 16, 17, put me as the lead in the play because he said I had a powerful voice. And he made me do the activities that were required to be in that class and to perform. And I did. And my voice was a lot more powerful than I realized, the physical voice.
Yeah.
And so when I did it, it scared the heck out of me. And I went home that night and I didn't realize what I was fearing what would happen if I took that role. So I dropped the class, and I still always look back to that day as one of those moments in my life thinking, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And I still reference one of those moments back in my life, like that could have been a pivot point, could have, but that's in the past now. I can't do anything about it.
Correct.
But I see that and I say, someone saw something in me, and this is 25 plus years ago, and I still remember that.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So vividly.
Some person wrote down here, actually, Lisa wrote down, fear of success, question mark.
Yeah.
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 It's getting like today was like perfect for you. Comfort zone.
Yeah.
You flip from being uncomfortable and position that as fear, as, not safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't fear the scary shit in life. We fear, our deepest fears are about recognizing how powerful we can be.
Yeah.
And that's what blocks us. That's what stops us. Not failure. That at this level of game, when you're going for all out and rising up, you're afraid. We're all afraid of how powerful we can be, because we can't see this power. And what will that do to me? What will that do to the people around me? Will they like me the way that it is? Will I like me the way that I am? Well, you know what? Nah. Those are not effective questions. There's all why-based questions. It's like what you're really asking is, why won't they like me? You're projecting yourself into the future with as though it's already happened and it's negative, as opposed to how might I make myself? What might I become? What is that model of me I want to be? The other thing is, money is only an amplifier of who you are. Like if you are a person that is, pardon my French here, but if you're an asshole, you're going to be a bigger, better asshole with more money. That's all you're going to do. At the end of the day here, if you are compassionate, which you are, a compassionate individual who cares really about people, you're going to be more able to be compassionate about people. Yeah, that compassion might change, because over time, I've been very compassionate. I've gone through a lot of crap in my life. And I am compassionate. I'm proud to say that. But at the end of the day, I will kick somebody's ass around the block because I am compassionate. Not to beat them up, but to have them see how strong they actually are. And that sometimes takes more compassion than it does. It's not about anger. It's not about being mean. It's about seeing the potential and having more faith in them than they have in themselves in that moment.
You're right.
And holding them accountable to that. But at some point, that switch has to flip and they have to start seeing it. And that's what happened on this call with Rebecca today. She flipped that switch herself. Okay, all I did is I set it up for it to be possible. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen, but it did. And so I want to reinforce it. That's all I want to do. And it's a powerful, simple thing. But she did the work. She flipped herself. She got the grit in her voice. She got the determination. She saw herself differently. I didn't have to tell her to do that. I didn't even have to remind her to do that. She just did that. That's
it was clear. It was clear.
It was crystal clear.
It's clear.
Yeah. And so that's like you. You got to be able to do the same thing, but you need more of the mind models in your head. Sorry to say that, but I know no other reliable, identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable way to get you. I could say, well, fine, go find counseling in this, or go to a coach, or do something like that. But I go, Mind models are way more reliable than counseling and way more effective right now for you than coaching, because you don't need coaching. You could coach people for that matter. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to see what you're doing effectively and know how to discern the difference. You need to have the differentiators. You don't have them in your life, in your mind, and your quick study, you'll get them fast. So sorry about the plug. It's $497. It's dirt cheap. That's the cheapest you get me ever. Okay. I am, well, other than free, and I love doing this stuff because it feeds me, but honestly, you don't get me, you never get me cheaper than that.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Appreciate
Worth
you.
every dime. Yes. Okay. And for those of the rest of you that are on this call, I don't know if we said it or not. I don't know if Trevor said it or not, but I'm going to tell you, you all have to have and taken and studied. Oh, yes, Trevor said it. Yes, because I remember him jumping on. You have to have, if you're coming into mind model coach training, you have to take and go through the course, Rewiring Your Mind for Wealth. It's a prerequisite. You have to go through it. There's no choice. We won't take you otherwise. Okay, because there's just so much I want to get covered in there. And the mind models are not one of them. Anyway, back to you. Anything else I can do for you, Paul?
You said it. You said it. And it is absolutely true. I mesh both evaluation and judgment there. And very few times are they distinct. More times than not, they're meshed.
Yeah.
And it's messy. And I coach people. I mentor people in a lot of different ways in my life and my job, my siblings. I'm very self-confident in a lot of those things.
Yes, absolutely.
I am. I have that self-confidence because I've done it several times, and I gauge people's reactions in their voice and their body language and what I hear. And then I test for a reaction just naturally. Like that is something that I feel very comfortable with because I've grown through that, through putting myself in different situations,
yep.
Whether I chose to or not.
Yep.
And it's happened, but evaluation, judgment, those are two messy areas.
They are.
For me. And that was something that was very evident on the last coaching call on Fast Track that I had with one of the mentors. And so said the same thing. I need to get out of my own way. I'm in my way.
Yep.
So I have everything else that I need. I showed my plan. I showed how everything was laid out. I have a board right behind me. Let's put it on here so it's on the recording, but my plan to what's critical, what's important, what can wait. Down below here, what's ongoing, anything that I'm pulling from everybody else, what people are actually doing so I can actually evaluate it.
Right.
That's how my mind works. Then I ask myself the question that I shouldn't be asking myself, why isn't it working? And then that's where I get you're spot on. I mix that judgment question with something that should be more evaluative. And then I get emotional about it when I'm completely rational a lot of things, but then I throw that emotion in there and it fuses the two together, which it shouldn't.
Yep.
So I just wanted to validate what you said in an example there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's very spot on. So
good.
Yeah.
So scale of 1 to 10, how effective was that for you?
10 plus.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
I did wind up going deeper than I thought because, first of all, you were handling it very well and it was meaningful for you. I normally go for an 8. I don't generally like trying to get 10s because it can get a little freaky, but you weren't freaked out. So I got going deeper, like you were eating it up in short.
Yeah.
So, well
done.
I
appreciate that. I get tested in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, you do.
All day long. So.
Yep. That's for sure.
Yep,
that's for sure.
It's a lot. Start my day early in the morning at the gym, then go to corporate, then come home and work on EMP, and then I have a few other things I do, and then keep touch with everybody during the day. So it's one thing after the other. So I guess, like you're talking about with neuroplasticity, that lesson, and then just being able to the moving average, what the moving average is. My moving average has changed where it is now to where it is a year ago. I wouldn't have been doing a lot of this.
Yep.
And now I've grown in my daily method of operation to add more and more and more. So this is where I am at now, where even 6 months ago wouldn't have been the case.
Now you're going to have to start figuring out how to simplify.
Okay.
Because that's going to be, one of those pieces. As you grow your own business, as you move yourself up the ladder, it's not about more complexity. It's about simplification. But you can't simplify if everything has to be complex. And you can't simplify if you don't have some form of mind model to wrap your head around. If you don't want to use mind models, get the book Principles by Ray Dalio. Okay, it's a very good book. I read it myself from time to time. He doesn't approach it from the same way that I do, but he is a billionaire and he has made a ton of money, and he wrote principles for life and work, so that he had a way of collecting data points to make intelligent decisions identifiably, repeatably, and duplicatively. He doesn't say that in the book, but he says that in the book. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Right out. Principles by. Perfect.
Yeah. And shortly, I'm going to get my short little 23, 25 page book out here that's just called Good to Effective. Not good to great, but good to effective. So that's my next work. And that's 6-8 weeks out, but it's happening. So it'll be here soon. So with that, Trevor, if you want to jump back on here, I would appreciate it.
All right.
Super.
Thanks for coming on, Paul. I'll put you back to an attendee.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Paul. Good job. Good work. And we'll just wrap up.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, everybody. We were going. We cut down the time for several weeks, and then Blair decided to reverse the trend tonight. So
dear.
After this, so.
Hey, it's still only basically 2 hours. So
we're 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, not bad.
I'm just kidding. But
we're under our 2.5 hours.
Everybody's staying the whole time, so that's great.
Yeah, we are.
There was a few of you at the beginning that said you wanted to be contacted about the mind model coach training. So we only have a little bit of time this week before we go, but we'll see if we can have a chat with a couple of you guys. What time? We've got some time tomorrow after 3:15 p.m. Mountain Time. So if any of you are available then, or on Thursday after 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Hopefully you guys can convert. But if those times might work for you and you're one of the people that's interested in the Mind Model Coach Training Program, contact us, send an email, whatever it takes, and we'll see if we can squeeze you in before we go to tell you more about the program and see if we can make it work.
Absolutely. Right. And both of us, by the way, will be on the interview. So just making that happen. And somebody asked, I was just scrolling back there, the deposit, yes, we're looking for $1,000 deposit and moving forward. And more importantly, we're looking for people that have the prerequisite of you guys actually doing the rewiring your mind for wealth and collectively pulling that into your repertoire, because we need that type of stuff happening in order to get you into and get the mind model coach training done effectively. Mm-hmm. Okay.
There actually is one other qualification that I think maybe would be helpful to bring up.
Yep.
And that's that you need to be a business owner or sole proprietor. Yes. And we're not saying that to be dicks or anything, but since we are Canadians, we cannot come down to the States and do that type of thing without it being to people that are business owners or sole proprietors. So keep that in mind. We can talk more about that on the phone, of course, but just wanted to throw that out there.
There are lots of options that we can do. And since most of you are doing EMP and whatnot, most of you may or should actually get yourselves companies so that you can actually go out there and have all the write-offs you're entitled to. If you're working on a multi-level marketing business, you are more than capable of setting up an incorporation. So we just have to work with business owners, not employees. So that's the reality of it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with that, you guys have a good night. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thanks so much. Bye for now.